You're probably aware that wine from Napa Valley is pretty awesome, and maybe know the situation is similar with wines from Sonoma. But what do you know about Paso Robles? Today, you'll learn why it's kind of like the Wild West, and how Paso Robles wines compare to those from Napa and Sonoma. And by the end of the episode, you may be convinced to explore this up-and-coming wine region both in person and through your palate. This is the Inside Wine Podcast. I'm Joe Janish, a certified specialist of wine and wine industry professional since 1996, giving you insider tips to make the right wine decisions. Today, our guest is Jane Dunkley, and you are a winemaker in Paso Robles, California.
Yep.
But you are not from California.
No, this is not a East Paso Robles accent. So I'm originally from Western Australia. And so, yeah, the little girl in me from beef cattle farm, 3 hours from the most isolated city in the world is always just kind of a little bit blown away that I get to be sitting here in New York City and I get to talk to people about wine. It's kind of, it's a bit of a pinch me moment,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So what got you from Australia to the United States?
So, us Aussies, we always like to just bounce around, kind of doing work all around the world. And so, in 2014, I thought that I was just going to be here for 3 months helping out Randall Graham at Bonnie Doon in Santa Cruz. And I thought, I was just going to help him out for harvest. Yeah, and that was how many years ago? 12?
Oh, my.
Yeah, so...
3 months.
Yeah, it was a really long 3 months.
Oh, my goodness. Holy cow. So you've landed in Paso Robles.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they think about California wine, they think about Napa, they think about Sonoma. So give our listener an idea of how is Paso Robles different from those two places in particular, because that's what people are familiar with. What's it like as a reference point? What makes Paso Robles different?
Yeah, what I love about Paso Robles and what sort of drew me down there is that it kind of still feels like it's a little bit of the Wild West.
Oh.
I mean, I think that I live kind of firmly in the New World way of winemaking. And so having too many rules is just not going to work to me. Unfortunately, I'm just not a rule follower. And so in Paso Robles, it feels like those rules haven't yet been written. I know that there's a really strong following for Rhone varieties, but there's people doing only Italian varieties. Every variety you can name, is just about planted in Paso Robles. And we have this amazing sort of mix of microclimates, soil types, all of that sort of thing that just mean that you can really kind of carve your own path. And I think that's really evident in the wines I make for Bezel, where it's like, we just get to do whatever we want. So let's not kind of put ourselves to these strict rules of it must be Cabernet Sauvignon, it must be kind of Rhone varieties and things like that. So I think it's just a really exciting place to be making wine. And
So it's kind of like you're a pioneer in the area.
I wouldn't say that I'm a pioneer, but I think that the area is still being pioneered.
Okay, that's good. You mentioned that you're the winemaker for Bezel.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about what Bezel is, because our listener may not be familiar. It's kind of a new brand.
Yeah, so Bezel really only kind of went live, shall we say, last year. And it's from the Cakebread family. And I always like to kind of give the origin story because it sort of goes back to February of 2020. And I don't know about you in February of 2020, but I think there were a few people kind of really thinking about, the trajectory of their lives and all of that sort of thing. But the Cakebread family was coming up on the 50th anniversary of Cakebread Cellars and then really kind of contemplating what the next 50 years was going to hold. And that's sort of where Bezel was born, where it was an idea about creating similar wines, but really exploring different parts of the west coast of the US. And so then they settled on Paso Robles for Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc. And we're lucky because just half an hour down the road is the San Luis Obispo Coast AVA, which is one of the coolest places to grow grapes in California. And so there we were able to, make Chardonnay, Pinot Noir that really reflect cool climate winemaking.
So the wines from Bezel are not going to taste like the wines from Cakebread.
No, but I think that there's still some commonalities in
Okay.
them. And so when we were sort of designing the wines, it didn't make sense to go in a completely different direction.
Sure.
But I would say they're Cakebread inspired.
Okay.
In that, there's freshness, they're food friendly, modest oak, modest alcohol. And I think that all makes sense within the context of Cakebread cellars. But yeah, we're exploring a different part of California. And so it just wouldn't make sense to just copy and paste.
Right. And looking at you and listening to you, you are different from a lot of the other winemakers that I've met in my 30 years in the wine business.
I try to be.
So I have a feeling that your personality comes through in the wines.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I've lost count of how many kind of vintages I've done. And while this is very much not Jane Dunkley wines, it would be silly of me not to put some of my influence in there. And so, yeah, I was definitely aware that, I think I always use the example of Paso Cabernet, right? Mm-hmm. There's been a pretty well-trodden path by some of our friends in Paso as to what Paso Cabernet is. And so those wines kind of reflect jammy, kind of quite high alcohol, and they're delicious. But I just knew that that wasn't the path that I wanted to go down. And so I think that I can make wines that are still familiar in the context of Cabernet Sauvignon, but perhaps just a little bit left of centre.
Okay. All right. Okay. So if our listener is already familiar with Paso Robles wines, they will still understand these wines are from Paso Robles, but maybe not at that extra level of...
Yeah, okay. I hope so. We're really only coming out with the Sauvignon Blanc this year, but I think the Sauvignon Blanc is fantastic. So I think that really sets the tone for the entire kind of portfolio, and especially for Paso Robles, where it's like kind of capturing sunshine and still delivering this sort of freshness. And I think Paso Robles is really known for its diurnal temperature swings. We always joke that it's 100 degrees during the day in the summertime, but it's going to be 50 degrees at night.
Oh my, you need a sweater.
You always need a sweater, and the number of, people that you see caught out at a night out in Paso Robles wearing shorts and a t-shirt, absolutely freezing their ass off is it's quite amusing to us locals. With that diurnal temperature swing, you get this great sort of acid retention and this sort of structural element, and I really wanted to lean into that with those wines, and bring that sort of freshness from the sites and from the sort of microclimates into the glass.
Sounds like they'd be a little more food friendly than
Definitely.
Good acidity.
Well, and I just really think that is really the core of what wine is, right? It's gastronomy. It's meant to be this sort of vehicle to bring people together. And I think bringing people together over food is really, that's what brings a lot of us joy.
Yeah, exactly. Are you a bit of a foodie?
I try to be. No, I definitely am. And I'm always, I think one of the great bits about getting to travel is you get to see the different foods. And I really do feel like every state in the United States is its own country. I think if we think about it in a European context. And so I do love to be like, all right, what's the local food here? And because I get to go out and I get to visit a lot of restaurants and speak with a lot of different people, I have infinite notes on my phone of, what's the best pizza by the slice? I'm going to Philly on Thursday. So I've already started a Philly cheesesteak list. I probably do come back from my travels a little bit heavier than I go into them, but life's too short to not eat a Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a Philly cheesesteak lover myself.
I'll get your go-to spot when we finish there.
Well, it's got to be Philadelphia, of course. So what would you match with the Philly cheesesteak? What wines? Are there more than one? Is there a perfect match?
Well, I think that I will need to do some in-field testing, but...
We should do that.
Yeah, I think so. So I would say that because it's sort of like... What's great about a Philly cheesesteak, right? It's like kind of like normally it's like ribeye, kind of thinly cut, right? So that's a fattier cut, and then you've got this sort of cheese I don't know if I'm a cheese whiz person, but I've been watching a lot of videos and I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to go with it. But I would say then you kind of you want something to kind of cut through that kind of
need some acid, right?
fatty,
greasiness.
And so I actually really do think that, Cabernet is kind of going to be a good call for that. Having that little bit of tannic structure, that fresh acidity. I also am a believer that, we don't make a Bezel Riesling, just let me put it down there. But I do believe that Riesling is the ultimate food wine. And especially, I think I always tend to go towards fatty foods.
Yeah, well.
And so I think that probably is reflected in the wines I make, that I'm like, I always need a little bit of acidity. Cut through that.
See, but that's good. It's good that the winemaker is thinking about, from a food standpoint, thinking about making the wine from that standpoint.
Yeah. I think that if you meet a winemaker that isn't a foodie, you should be suspicious. Because there's easier jobs.
Exactly. All right, so we've got a Cabernet with a cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteak, but I think we're going to need to do like a gourmet Philly cheesesteak and wine match at some point.
I think
we got to do something like that.
Get me back.
All right, what wine with pizza then?
Oh, well, it's hard, right? Because there's so many different types of pizza.
All right, New York, just a New York pizza. Like you go downstairs and get a slice for $2.
Jeez, I want it to be unpretentious, but honestly, I think that sometimes a little bit of like a pepperoni can actually go quite nicely with a Pinot Noir. Well, actually, no, probably a Syrah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you've got that sort of, I think, cured meats where you've got, and then you've got that kind of Syrah kind of smokiness. I know, but I feel like Americans don't really.
I was going to say, you're
Syrah.
Australian, so of course you're coming out with Shiraz.
I know, I have to. I feel like it's my lot in life to be like, people just don't know that they want to be drinking Shiraz, they want to be drinking Syrah. Yeah.
We'll get there eventually.
I hope so. Yeah.
We'll get there. Through you and Bezel, hopefully. So I feel like one of the reasons the Cakebread family decided to make Bezel was to appeal to a different kind of audience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret. The target audience is a younger generation.
Yeah.
The dorks in the wine industry, like myself and you, we keep hearing that the younger people, and I'm never sure what we mean by younger people. I'm not sure if it's 22-year-olds or if it's 42-year-olds, but there's been an issue in the industry. Everybody's panicking that the young people are not drinking enough wine.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, do you feel like that's an issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether, I think it's hard not to be like kind of see, I see every side of it.
Yeah.
It's like, should people be more health conscious? Absolutely they should. I think that it would be almost, I don't know. I don't know that I would be saying everyone should be drinking wine every single night. Okay. As someone who still has to lie to their doctor.
When that question comes up, how many glasses of wine a week?
Just 7. And they still look at me, I'm lying.
They still
look at me like that's too many. And I'm like, that's 1 glass per night. Like in Europe, that's very, very normal. So and not that I think that we should be telling everyone like, everyone needs to drink more. That doesn't feel like a message that's going to be received well. However, I think I am concerned that it's not just wine. It's that perhaps people aren't going out for dinner and all of these sorts of things. And I think a lot of us are feeling the pinch, in our wallets right now as well. And so being able to find ways for people to still enjoy gastronomy and have it be fit better into people's lifestyles. And so I do think that, I know that I do a lot of like home delivery kind of things. And even, I might get the recipe from the New York Times app and you can link it to your Instacart and then they deliver all of those items to your home. And I'm like, yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's sort of how, we want to, still be kind of interacting, I think, with this world of gastronomy, but make it easy for people. And I think Bezel, we're really conscious about that price point. And so, I think retail. I'm never ask a winemaker how much a wine costs. I'm like, I don't know. But
grapes per ton, though.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll say that, normally we see the Cabernet and Pinot Noir at $30, and the two whites, the Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, are at $25. And so we really hope that is a price point where people can indulge and see that as a little treat for themselves.
Sure.
And I would really like to see it be an excuse to get people together. Like, I read a great article the other day, because it was like, all right, how are we going to bring people together? And it's like, people don't want to feel so pressured anymore. And so I read this great article about, have a party where people come to your house and they bring their laptops and they just get their chores done. And so it's like, the number of people who told me that their resolution for this year was to unsubscribe from things.
There you go.
And so I'm like, how do we just frame things in a different way, right? Like, so I think I'm going to have a party where it's like, come over, bring your laptop, do your taxes, bring your paperwork. We don't even have to talk to each other, but there'll be wine there, there'll be food. If you want to interact, you can. But let's just take the pressure off people.
Yeah.
And so I want to see Bezel showing up in people's lives in these different ways. But yeah, I think that we just have to think about things differently. And, the world is evolving at such a rapid click that I think the wine industry does want to be so heavily rooted in tradition that often we're missing these cultural shifts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. How old were you when you discovered wine, or has it been part of your whole life?
I think that it has been a part of my whole life.
Okay.
And so my family sort of grew up around the corner from a winery.
Oh, okay.
This is in Capel, Western Australia.
Okay.
Shout out Capel. 3,000 people live there. It's a big town.
Yeah.
And so I would often go to the winery with my dad, and he was friends with the owners, of course. And, there's something captivating about walking into a winery.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of dark.
Yeah.
You're kind of going into a cave, and, there's a lot of different smells and sounds and things like that. And it kind of feels like, especially for a child, you're like, this is a very strange world, And so I think I was conscious of that from an early age. And then when I was 16, I learned about viticulture and all of these sorts of things. And I just realised this could be something for me, because it does tick a lot of these boxes, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always been kind of a foodie, but the thought of working in a hot kitchen,
no thanks.
No thanks.
Hours are not good either.
Yeah. And, I grew up on a beef cattle farm, and I knew I wanted to be involved in agriculture. I was never going to be able to sit behind a desk,
sure,
for 8 hours a day. I just have too much pent-up energy to do that. And so, but I knew that I didn't want to do agriculture in the way that my family kind of did agriculture. And I did, I was quite good at science and chemistry and, and biology and things like that. And so then kind of realising that winemaking could be the confluence of those three things.
Yeah.
And so, when I was 16, I was like, okay, cool. This feels like something I could do. And that makes it all sound like it's really easy, right? But, I did a lot of, work in vineyards. I did vineyard establishment, just laying irrigation line for a whole summer. Yeah, and so I really I guess I started working in the industry since when I was about 16.
Oh, my goodness.
And then ended up going to, child labour laws. It wasn't such a thing.
Not down there.
I didn't get pocket money at home, so I needed to. If you wanted some pocket money, you had to work. And so, I felt like I was in wine industry adjacent, at least as a teenager. And then I did my first harvest in 2002, but I'd already started doing my wine science and viticulture and enology degree during that time.
It's funny. Teenagers here in the United States, if they need pocket money, it used to be delivering newspapers. Or maybe being a waiter or a waitress at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You just decided to work a harvest.
Well, there's only one restaurant.
Okay, that's
Capel,
fair.
And it's
3,000 people.
And it's the pub. So I don't think they like teenagers working at the pub. I think that is one of the few places they draw the line. And and my nearest, I grew up on a farm, so my nearest neighbour, riding a bike around the neighbourhood, I could only probably deliver 4 newspapers. So I don't think either of those things are going to make me much money. And the other thing is, if you didn't work for someone else, then you had to work for your family.
Oh.
And we do have a rule that what is said in the cattle yards stays in the cattle yards.
Okay.
But yes, there has been many moments of a silent dinner in my family after working together in the cattle yards. Yes, we have a short fuse, us Dunkleys. So it's best for everyone that if you're a teenager, just go work for someone else.
I feel like there's another story here, but maybe that's for another episode.
There's too many stories, Joe, and many of them are not appropriate.
All right. Well, maybe you could tell me a story of something that maybe happened in Paso Robles instead. Anything exciting, interesting, outstanding, surprising as a winemaker?
Look, I will say one thing is that what I love about Paso Robles is the kind of community down there. And
it sounds like it's kind of like what Napa was maybe in the 1960s.
I think a lot of people do say that.
Yeah.
Where
we weren't there, so we don't know. But
who knows? But so someone asked me yesterday, they were like, who's your biggest competitor in Paso Robles? And I just sort of thought, I don't think we speak like that, because I think in Paso Robles we've got a really great sort of wine industry alliance, and I think everyone believes that rising tides float all boats.
Sure.
And so one thing that sort of brings me life and brings me joy in Paso Robles is when I first kind of got down there, I was working for a very large wine company, if not the largest wine company. And when you are a winemaker working for the largest family-owned wine business in the world, you're not that popular. People want to be friends with the winemakers that have their cool own label. They don't want to be friends with the gallo winemakers.
Right.
Sorry, that's just reality.
Right.
And so, but I went and I did a tasting with another winery that we had both sourced grapes from the same vineyard. And so we thought, let's do a tasting where we taste all of these wines. And the assistant winemaker there at the time said, hey, I'm about to start a women in wine tasting group. Would you be up for it? I was like, yeah, great. And I think that was, if it wasn't 2017, it was 2018. And since then, I've sort of had this core of women winemakers, and we get together once a month and taste wine. But it's really become not only my friendship group, but also just a great source of knowledge and information, where it's such a safe place that I can ring these people up and say, gosh, I'm having this problem with wine, or hey, I need to offer someone some money, where are the salaries at? It just feels like an amazing kind of supportive and safe space. And so to have this sort of women in wine tasting group, has really been something that's just brought me so much joy. And I think it's so representative of the entire region, where we all want to help each other out, because what's good for the region is good for us as individuals as well. So it's really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Probably a little different if you're like working for a hedge fund or stock market, that type of thing. A little different.
Yeah, a little different. Well, because I just don't think there's any secrets in winemaking. It's just timing and site selection. I mean, unless you're utilising some crazy technology that you've never, that no one else knows about, there are no secrets. There's only good grapes.
Yeah. So
I think that once you realise that, it kind of takes a lot of that angst out of it.
Understood. So what do you think is next for Paso Robles?
Oh, gosh.
Do you think it's going to become a tourist area? Do you think that the wines are going to become world-class, world-known? Do you think it's going to be something else?
Yeah, I think that the tourism and hospitality piece is really, really interesting. one of the reasons that I sort of moved to Paso Robles, I was interviewing for a job down there, and I grabbed my husband. I was like, well, we better go for a weekend. And actually, I hadn't even really spent much time there, which is kind of the story of my life. I do kind of like to fly by the seat of my pants a little bit. No one's surprised by that. And so we went down there, and I was like, look, I just need a good coffee shop, and I need a couple of good restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 good coffee shops, and there's a lot of really fantastic restaurants down there. And so I think that the culinary scene is definitely expanding.
Mm-hmm.
And we are seeing a lot of tourism, and it's from a lot of different parts as well. People from Los Angeles and Southern California, they tend to skip over Santa Barbara and come to Paso Robles instead. And it's quite funny, and I know we get a lot of Central Valley people as well, but there is almost like kind of this cowboy vibe, like a little bit of Wild West, as I said. And, there's not only Paso Robles, but there's also Templeton, there's Creston. So there are almost these other little stagecoach stops along the way.
Nice.
That have their sort of little food moments. Obviously, we're big into kind of Santa Maria barbecue, but, also been so close to the coast and so close to the Salinas Valley. There's the most amazing kind of farm-to-table food that's available, and that sort of in that sort of California fresh sort of way, while still having this nod to the cattle ranchers kind of old. And I love that kind of balance, and that makes me feel kind of at home, because I have that sort of background as well. So I think that we'll start to see that expanding more. We had been really limited. There weren't that many hotels, and I think every city in the world is seeing a bit of a backlash towards Airbnb.
Sure.
And so, but recently, there has been new hotels built, and we've got a great small hotel chain down there that takes the old motels and then renovates them and makes them kind of destinations unto themselves.
Yeah.
There's sort of like mid-century motels that is really, really cool. So I think it's really exciting, and we're certainly still in the welcoming phase.
Yeah.
Like,
Now's the time. Now's the time to go visit.
Well, and we're like, come visit. Everyone wants to say, like, everyone wants to show off this place. Everyone wants to say, here's where I like to go.
Yeah.
Here's where I like to visit. And I really think that regardless of what sort of wines you want to drink, you can find something for you. And there's a lot of young winemakers starting small little brands in an area called Tin City.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go there and you can taste at like 10 or 15 different wineries.
Oh, nice.
Just in one little place, and have some beer and have some cider and have some Italian food. And it's really fun, and we're welcoming. We want people to come and visit us.
Yeah, now the way you're describing it, it sounds like a place I would definitely want to visit. Can I get a cowboy hat? You
can definitely get a cowboy hat, and they'll steam it for you and put it in the right.
So it'll fit my head perfectly?
Yeah, and they'll shape it for you.
Oh,
boy. You can get a custom one where they'll sew in.
That's what I want.
Yep.
That's what I want. How about boots? Can I get boots?
I've got an office actually in downtown Paso, and it's next to Boot Barn.
Boot Barn, I'm going.
Boot Barn is kind of amazing, and all of my friends, from Santa Cruz and things come down. They're like, "I'm gonna come to your house, but I've just got to stop by Boot Barn first, and then I'll arrive at my house 3 hours later." So, yes, but you definitely. It almost feels like people are kind of dressed up in costume when they come to Paso Robles.
That's awesome.
Wants to wear, and I say that as I'm wearing like the most gaudy Western shirt. But it's we kind of like that, and lean into that a little bit.
All right, cool. And as long as I can get a farm to table Philly cheesesteak.
You know what? There was a place that was doing amazing Philly cheesesteaks, but I got one for lunch once. And that was a mistake because I was in an absolute, it was so delicious, I couldn't stop it. And then I was in an absolute food coma all afternoon. But, and everyone I saw was like, what's happened? And I was like, I got Philly cheesesteak. And they were like, oh, yeah, but it's so good. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I think if you decide you're done with winemaking, you might make it as just brings in people to visit the town.
Yeah, tourism ambassador.
Yeah, an ambassador. That's you. You're an ambassador for Paso Robles, it sounds like.
So I really hope I am, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jane, for teaching us about Paso Robles and giving us a little insight into who you are and what Paso Robles is. This was really a lot of fun. Any last things you want to say to people, maybe to introduce them? Why should they go and enjoy or at least try a wine from Paso Robles and from Bezel?
Yeah, I think that with Bezel, we really do have something for everyone. You know, someone will say, oh, I don't normally drink Chardonnay. And I'm like, that's okay. If it's not Chardonnay, I'll get you on one of the other wines. So, you know, we've got great sort of energetic, refreshing whites. So we've got a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc. And then we've got our Pinot Noir is really sort of quite different once again. Gosh, it has to be different.
Everything has to be different with you, right?
So, you know, we want to be there, and however you want to drink wine, we're sort of there for you. So if you want to put the Pinot Noir in the fridge and drink it on a hot day, I don't think you need to be doing that in New York City right now. Although everyone still insists on getting an iced coffee and filling my water glass with ice, and I'm like, it's very cold outside.
It's a balmy 20 degrees today as we're recording.
Having more ice. So yeah, I think, you know, with Bezel, yeah, if I don't get you on one wine, I'll get you on another one. And yeah, we want wine to just be a casual thing that you can enjoy without pretense. And if you're not drinking Bezel wines, then I think that there really is something for everyone in Paso Robles. And yeah, we'd love to have you visit.
All right, great. Do you have an Instagram account or anything else you want to call out?
Yeah, my Instagram is Jane Makes Wine.
Jane Makes Wine. All right.
I'm very unoriginal. It's true.
All right. We're going to drop that in the show notes as well as where you can find Bezel Wines. Jane Dunkley, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to my conversation with Jane Dunkley, the winemaker for Bezel Wines in Paso Robles, California. If you'd like to learn more about Jane, Bezel, and Paso Robles, please check the show notes. There are links to websites and social media to get you connected. You can also learn about wine, minus the pretense, at wine365.com. I'll be back again with another episode for you in about 2 weeks. In the meantime, remember, wine is food. It comes from a place. Enjoy it responsibly.